Today we continue our free training sessions about Microsoft licensing that we conduct on YouTube since 2022. We started in summer/autumn 2022, and we continue running these sessions. Actually, no. Was it 2021? It was 2021. It was that long ago. And our first session has already been watched 25,000 times. And this is part 8 of the new series where the trainings are shorter. So we'll keep the today's sessions to below 1 hour. This is what we're trying to do these days because very few people survive 3-hour-long training sessions. But we split them into smaller pieces. We feed you piece by piece. And if you don't know about these training sessions, one of the most important things about them is that we do certify for the knowledge of Microsoft licensing and Microsoft license management. It's our custom in-house certification. Microsoft does not. They stopped, a couple of years ago, they stopped completely certifying for Microsoft licensing. And right now there are only 3 options available worldwide, and we are one of those 3. So if you watch all our training sessions, at least this season, then you can apply for a certification on our website, on one of our websites, SAMexpert.academy. You can see what options are available on that website, including a hidden free option. Hope you find it. And we can certify you for the knowledge of Microsoft licensing. Today's session is new. We haven't done it in the first series. We did not discuss licensing on listed providers, so-called listed providers. I will tell you what that is. This is a beta version of that training, first version, so we terribly need your feedback. We may make some slight mistakes during it. You found a mistake, please let us know. If you think that something is missing and you want to learn more, or we are maybe misinterpreting something from your point of view, of course, please let us know. Because this training will be repeated soon again in an updated version when we collect all the feedback from professionals, from other people in the industry. And this is what we do here. We give this knowledge away for free so you can learn and apply it in your practice. What you will learn today, we're not going to do a lot of housekeeping. You will learn about how to license Microsoft software in AWS and GCP, Google Cloud Platform. We will discuss license included versus bring your own license options. These are the main available options in any cloud. The products that we'll cover will be Windows Server, SQL Server, Microsoft Office. I'll tell you about how to license other Microsoft software, what is not yet in this version, but will be an updated version, Windows 11 for Amazon Workspaces, and a comparison of licensing options to Microsoft Azure, which is currently becoming a very hot topic. Watch this space. Very interesting topic, whether Azure is better or what advantages Azure provides compared to other providers. Today, it'll only be me. As you can see on the slides, there are 2 founders of SAMexpert. We have a team of about 10 people now. The company is growing. I am the founder. I created SAMexpert in 2009, and right now I'm the CEO of the company. Disclaimer that I must tell you, we are not Microsoft. We're not affiliated to Microsoft. We're not Microsoft partners. This is not sponsored, ordered, or otherwise incentivized by anyone, including Microsoft. So it's purely our own initiative for the community and just to get our names out there as well. If you have any doubts, because this is our practical knowledge, this is our experience of dealing with Microsoft licenses in these scenarios that we describe in these trainings. These are our battle scars. If you have any doubts, refer to Microsoft product terms. It's the website where all the Microsoft product terms are listed for end users. Service providers, if you're a service provider, you can find your product terms using a similar URL, microsoft.com/licensing/SPUR, service provider use rights. Always check everything you learn using those documents. As we discussed today, AWS and GCP, I also would encourage you to go to their websites and look at their frequently asked questions and their general description of Microsoft licensing, because they cover more subjects that we can possibly squeeze in a 1 hour training. We will only concentrate on the high level so you can understand how it works, what are the general terms and conditions, what are the general rules, the logic behind that licensing. There'll be some details, sometimes in-depth details, so please bear with us. If you're not a licensing geek, you will become one if you watch all our training sessions. So, AWS and GCP, they are both service providers from the Microsoft point of view. They both have service provider license agreements with Microsoft that allow them to offer you the so-called license included options. When you don't acquire a license yourself, but the licenses belong to the providers and they are licensed to provide you, say, Windows Server virtual machines without you taking care of the license. They're both also authorized license mobility partners. And I will explain you what license mobility means. The importance of that is they provide options for you to bring some eligible products, eligible licenses to their platform and deploy your own licenses on their platforms. They are both listed providers, and that's, as opposed to authorized license mobility partners, that's not a good thing. Microsoft defines 4 providers as so-called listed providers, which are Amazon, Google, Alibaba, and Microsoft themselves, but that's a little bit cheeky because Azure has advantages compared to other listed providers. So AWS, which belongs to Amazon, and GCP, which is a Google Cloud platform, they're both listed providers, which means that bring your own license options are restricted, very restricted, compared to any other service provider, starting from a tiny provider next door to giants like Aruba and OVH, and which are the other names? Anyway, even Oracle Cloud is not listed. In general, AWS and GCP have similar conditions for license included and bring your own license. The differences are in product availability, in the implementation across various platforms and options they provide, and differences in license management. There are differences in how licenses are managed. We will try and tell you as much as possible today. After finishing these slides, I already have a list of about 10 plus ideas how to further develop this training. Again, please provide your feedback after this session or during the session. If you're watching this live right now, by all means, please comment. Please provide your commentary. I need to check whether that's streaming right now. Please bear with me. It's not going to take long. Yeah, seems like it's streaming. And by the way, you're watching right now. I see people watching. Please say hello. Please say where you're from. And, well, tell us why you're here. What is the main thing that you want to learn, take out from today's session? So, there are 2 generic options that you can get from every service provider. Every service provider in regards to Microsoft software. They are bring your own license and license included. So let's start with license included. What is license included? The other name for it is pay-as-you-go, PAYG. You may sometimes see it on some of our slides. That means pay-as-you-go. The main ideas are you don't have to purchase licenses. The provider takes care of licensing. They take care of the licenses. The cost of licenses is included in your monthly bills. They bill you for the licenses on a monthly basis. It may be charged per minute. It's up to them. They pay to Microsoft per month for all the licenses. The licensing term, the period, is a calendar month. That's the default calendar month. Again, sometimes providers might bill you a bit differently per hour or something like it. For example, Azure bills you per minute for licenses as well. But that depends on providers. But normally, you would expect that if it's license included on something that is not Azure, that would probably be on a monthly basis. Because that's the reporting period. That's how they pay to Microsoft for these licenses. And this is the default option for shared tenancy. If you don't know what it means, I'll explain to you the difference between shared and dedicated in a few slides from this one. And for the licensing geeks out there that are not for the first time on this channel, AWS and GCP are essentially just SPLA providers. That is why they provide these license included options. They use Microsoft SPLA agreement. What is bring your own license? Bring your own license, BYOL, stands for bring your own license, obviously. It allows you, as an end user, to reuse your existing licenses that you probably don't need on premises, or it may be sometimes cheaper to buy your own licenses and take them to the cloud than pay as you go monthly fees. Sometimes it is. And there are cases when that provides savings up to 90%. It's not always that fantastic, but we see cases like that. So it's your other option when you rent workloads from AWS and GCP, but from any other provider as well. If the provider allows you to bring your own license, and if they are authorized by Microsoft to allow you to bring your own licenses, then it's your other option to license Microsoft software on the providers in any cloud, really. Cloud or a service provider, hosting, whatever you call it. Rules of bring your own license apply to end clients because they apply to the licenses that end clients have. So if you're an end client, it means your licenses. Where can you learn about all the details about, nitty-gritty details about bring your own license? In Microsoft product terms. Remember the link I just showed you a few slides before? That is where you can find all the details about all the rules. Obviously today, I'll talk you through basics. So the basics. Hi Nora, nice to see you today with us. Bring your own license on listed providers differs. As I said, it's much more restricted than bring your own license on any other providers, which Microsoft calls authorized outsourcers. So anyone who's not AWS, Alibaba, GCP, or Azure, Microsoft themselves, is an authorized outsourcer. But again, today we're talking about AWS and GCP, and these are the rules, the basic high-level rules of bring your own license on listed providers. Hi, Jade. My name is Alexander. It's not Sam. SAM stands for Software Asset Management. My name is Alexander, or Sasha, if you prefer a more friendly version of my name. So, there's a big difference between shared and dedicated hardware. And I think I'll jump to that slide. Maybe not yet. Hardware that is shared between multiple clients is called multi-tenant or shared hardware or just typical public cloud. But the client may decide that they want hardware to be dedicated to them, which means that no other client virtual machines are running on that hardware. So that is dedicated hardware. Or single tenant, or as Google calls it, sole tenant. You'll see that many times on the slides. I know what is Jade. Yeah, many people think my name is Sam, whatever the reason is. Probably the channel name. So, where was I? Shared and dedicated hardware. On listed providers, if hardware is dedicated to your own use, you have an option to bring your own licenses to that hardware only if licenses are purchased before the 1st of October 2019, or an enterprise agreement as AWS describes it. You can only find it in the AWS FAQ. If you had an enterprise agreement signed before the 1st of October 2019 and you trued up licenses, so you bought additional licenses during that term, then they're also eligible. Nevertheless, the cutoff date is 1st of October 2019. As long as you keep the old version of the software, the license was purchased before that date, you don't upgrade it to newer versions. It's fine. You can upgrade the license, you don't upgrade the instance. You can use it on dedicated hardware on listed providers. If a product, which is not on this slide, but I need to add it to this slide, this is one of the, not mistakes, I would say, things that I overlooked on this slide in particular. Licenses with software assurance can be brought through the so-called license mobility through software assurance. So not every product can be brought. Not every product is BYOL eligible, but that works for both virtual machines on shared hardware and dedicated hardware, software deployed to dedicated hardware. So in addition to legacy licenses that you purchased 4 years ago, you can also obviously take current licenses with software assurance if the product has license mobility through software assurance rights. To give you an example, Windows Server does not have license mobility through software assurance. So the only option for Windows Server bring your own license, which we'll discuss in a few slides from now, is by finding licenses purchased more than 4 years ago and potentially assigning them to dedicated hosts. So no usage for Windows Server, no usage on shared infrastructures. Flexible virtualization benefit. I must mention it. Flexible virtualization benefit is not available on listed providers. This is a new right that Microsoft introduced in October 2022, actually to help smaller providers to improve their business. They simplified it to almost to an unlimited bring your own license. The only two requirements are the only requirement, not even two requirements. The only requirement is all the licenses must be covered with active software assurance or be on a CSP subscription. That new flexible virtualization benefit does not work on AWS, GCP, Alibaba, and let's not mention Microsoft. These three, it doesn't work there. The only option for bring your own license, that is, in addition to legacy licenses, is license mobility through software assurance, and you need to remember that. So still, it's a limited subset of products. So as I said, the products must be eligible. Where you can check whether the product is eligible, you open Microsoft product terms, microsoft.com/licensing/terms, and you go to the products page and search on the page for the words license mobility. And if it exists for that particular product, that means that that product is eligible for bring your own license through license mobility. If it's not mentioned, and for example for Windows Server it only applies to external connectors, then Windows Server licenses do not it means that they do not have license mobility through software assurance, therefore they do not benefit from bring your own license rights, say to shared virtual machines. So you can't take Windows Server to shared virtual machines on these two providers. I hope you understand. If you don't follow, if you don't understand, please ask your questions in the chat. It's important that you understand these basic concepts. They're actually basic. They may sound complicated, but you need to know them to understand if you can reuse your investment in software in AWS or GCP, or you can't. Licenses acquired through Microsoft CSP are not eligible to be taken to AWS and GCP. This could be a shocker. Why? Because CSP does not have software assurance as a concept. CSP subscription licenses provide the majority of software assurance benefits, but not license mobility through software assurance. To be eligible to take your licenses, that's the last step. So you establish that the product is eligible. You establish that you have active software assurance. It must be active. Current software assurance is not expired. And the last step is to fill in a license verification form. The easiest way to find how license verification forms work for AWS and GCP is to go to their respective pages where they explain Microsoft licensing and bring your own license and follow their instructions. However, you can just Google that, license verification process, Microsoft license verification process, and that will probably take you to the Microsoft's page. It will be number 1 and number 2 in the Google results, where Microsoft explains rules of license mobility through software assurance, and they provide the downloadable link for the license verification form, which you need to fill in and send it to Microsoft. Then Microsoft verifies it, sends it back to you, saying, fine, we agree that you do have eligible licenses in those quantities that you specified. And they, for example, I think they also tell you when your software assurance expires. I don't remember the exact details of that form, but the idea is they must confirm that you have licenses that you may use in bring your own license scenarios through license mobility. Then you take that form, that's the regular process, and send it to the provider to say, I'm bringing my licenses. Here's the confirmation from Microsoft themselves. I want to go back to the subject of shared versus dedicated hardware on these platforms. So shared or multi-tenant, the meaning is there are virtual machines from multiple end customers on the same hardware. So there are hardware hosts, blades, servers, maybe combined in clusters, maybe standalone, but they run virtual machines from various clients. You know, your competitor, your friends, multiple clients. So hardware, the server itself, is not dedicated to your own use. That is multi-tenancy. Multiple tenants on the same server, on the same hardware. Importantly, I hear that many times, but the virtual machine is dedicated to me. That doesn't matter. What matters is if you claim that a hardware is dedicated to you, that must mean that all the virtual machines on that hardware is dedicated to you. Then the hardware is dedicated. On AWS, regular EC2 instances are multi-tenant. They run in a multi-tenant environment. There are also EC2 dedicated instances which run on dedicated hardware. On GCP, the default Google Cloud Platform virtual machines run on shared tenancy. They are shared tenancy virtual machines. Bring your own license to those machines is via license mobility only on these two providers. License included options really depend on various configurations. So we'll look at particular products in particular environments so you can understand what license included options are available to you on those two cloud providers. When the hardware is dedicated to, dedicated to a single tenant, so again, a single tenant or sole tenant hardware, in Amazon, there are dedicated hosts, which is the easiest to understand, That includes VMware on AWS, which are also dedicated hosts. And there are EC2 dedicated instances, which is a bit of a strange thing. So they do run on dedicated hardware, but you don't manage the host. Amazon manages that for you. You still deal with virtual machines, but they make sure that your dedicated virtual machines, all of your dedicated virtual machines, dedicated EC2 instances, run on hardware that is dedicated to you. So that's not equal, that does not equal to dedicated hosts. In GCP, they are called GCP sole tenant nodes, and VMware on GCP also is also essentially sole tenant. And bring your own license to dedicated hardware has two options in general, which is, again, through license mobility. License mobility works in shared and dedicated, or old licenses purchased before October 2019. I hope that's clear up to this moment. Let's jump to the topic of Windows Server. So Windows Server, basic rules for the listed providers. And we'll go into the details on the next two slides. License included, in general, with a few exceptions, per provider. It, just by design, is available on dedicated, should be available on dedicated hardware. At least Microsoft allows it to be provided on dedicated hardware. The provider may decide not to, but Microsoft allows it. Microsoft allows that. And on virtual machines. License included means, again, I remind you, license is provided by the provider. Bring your own license on dedicated hardware. For Windows Server, because it doesn't have license mobility, bring your own license only works on dedicated hardware. And only for the licenses procured before the 1st of October 2019. That's it. That is where bring your own license stops for Windows Server. There are no options to bring your own license for Windows Server to a virtual machine on shared hardware. So that is the general rule of Microsoft licensing. Let's look at the implementations of these rules in AWS first. So AWS, the first line is dedicated hosts, including VMware. So license included is an interesting one. So it's not available on dedicated hosts because Amazon in general is, I would say, quite unflexibly in my opinion. It only manages licenses included if you run instances that are so-called Amazon machine instances. So deployed from the Amazon images with, and when you procure a machine, deploy a machine from that image, you select the image with licenses included. And only in that case, those licenses are provided and tracked by Amazon. There's no switch from AMIs, say without SQL Server, to an AMI with SQL Server included. You have to procure, if you want it to be included by Amazon, you have to procure an AMI. You have to create a new virtual machine from an image that includes SQL Server licenses. On Google, there's more flexibility. So in general then, dedicated hosts, including VMware hosts on Amazon, do not provide license-included options for Windows Server. Dedicated instances, because they're managed by AWS, yes, they do. They provide them. And EC2 instances on shared hardware also provide license-included options. Bring your own license on dedicated hosts. So that is your licensing option for dedicated hosts. You may bring your own licenses. And for Windows Server, I remind you, old Windows Server license. So what can you do if you want to have dedicated hosts, but you do not have legacy Windows Server licenses? And you can buy them from AWS. They can't provide them included. Well, there is an option, which is quite unorthodox, and we'll get there. But by default, if you don't know about the option, you have to go with EC2 on shared hardware. So, or go to Azure. That's what Microsoft is doing. Bring your own license on EC2 dedicated instances is not supported by AWS. If I'm mistaken, by the way, please let me know. But that's our current knowledge and our understanding of what they also explain in their training. And obviously, Windows Server bring your own license to shared hardware is prohibited by Microsoft because Windows Server does not have license mobility. In GCP, it looks a bit simpler, but it's very similar. So sole tenant, including VMware, Google does not provide licenses on sole tenant nodes at all, like none at all. Microsoft licenses are not provided. And bring your own license only works again for the licenses that were procured before the 1st of October 2019. Again, there's that unorthodox option, which I'll explain on the next slide. On GCP shared tenancy, same rules apply. Windows Server bring your own license is prohibited by Microsoft. It's not allowed. And obviously, Google provides you license included options on GCP shared tenancy. And unlike AWS, you can actually deploy a virtual machine from your own image, any image, and then attach Google provided licenses to that virtual machine. So it's a bit more flexible than AWS. Here's the unorthodox option. And that is right now probably the only option to license dedicated hosts for Windows Server if you don't have legacy licenses, because those providers do not provide licenses with the hardware. It's using a third-party SPLA provider. And we are working with a company that provides licenses through this scenario for dedicated sole tenant nodes on Google Cloud Platform. So we help them to put the framework together around that provision. The only thing that you must be aware of is Microsoft put a time bomb on it. In October 2022, they said it's only going to work for the next 3 years. So this option is only available until and including 30th of September 2025. This may change. I mean, more than 2 years are still ahead. And Microsoft may change their mind. There are certain people talking to Microsoft, including AWS, and trying to convince them to remove that limitation. So let's wait. Let's watch that space. But if you're using this option, you need to be aware that there's this time limit. You must be aware of that. The benefits of that is, firstly, well, that's the only bring your own license option, really, using another provider's SPLA licenses. For whatever reason, neither AWS nor Google provide licenses for dedicated hosts. You get the monthly flexibility of SPLA. So each month you pay for what you use. You deploy more hosts, you pay more, you decommission, just kind of cancel a rental of those hosts, you pay less on a monthly basis. You don't have to manage licenses. The provider manages it for you, that third-party provider. And you don't need a licenses purchased before October 2019. The other caveat here, which is important, is that by the rules of SPLA, strictly speaking, that third-party provider must provide you some kind of services together with these licenses. They can't just give you licenses. But that really depends on how they arrange their business. So this is not the subject of today's training. Possible, works. If you want any recommendations, because this is not a sponsored video, I can't give them now. But if you want kind of an advice where to go, whom to talk to, please contact us using the email that you can see in the top. Which corner? This corner. And ask a question. Client access licenses. So please don't forget that Windows Server requires client access licenses. And when you bring your own licenses, the rules apply that apply to, in general, to your own premises licenses. So there are no exceptions. And if you know how to license access for Windows Server on premises, same rules apply basically almost, with few caveats, to bring your own license scenarios on AWS and GCP, and we're talking about, again, dedicated hosts. If you don't know exactly how external access is licensed and what are the basic rules, I suggest after this training, watch our Windows Server training session that was recorded, I think, a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. It's a very fresh one. It talks about Windows Server 2022, so it's fresh. And there we have a whole part of the training that explains the details of Windows Server licensing and all the formulas. What's important is, for bring your own license scenarios, only external connectors, Windows Server external connector, Windows Server remote desktop services external connector, Active Directory rights management services external connector. External connectors have license mobility. So if they are currently under active software assurance, you can take them to those two environments using license mobility through software assurance. Go through, fill in that license verification form, get it signed off by Microsoft, but you can do that. With CALs, it's trickier. Windows Server CALs, which are, thanks for that question, which are different to remote desktop CALs. Windows Server CALs do not have license mobility rights. So unfortunately, the same limitation applies. They must have been bought before the 1st of October 2019 as perpetual licenses. Same applies to Active Directory rights management services CALs. I'll call them rights management services CALs. It's just easier. The thing about RDS CALs is RDS CALs it's the only exception. The only exception. So they do benefit from, not from license mobility. It doesn't say license mobility, but they can be taken to other providers, including AWS and GCP. And again, I'm 99% sure right now what I'm talking about. Please let me know in the comments if you disagree. And we'll correct this for the next version of this training. But I'm 99% sure I'm right. The thing is, in licensing, it's Microsoft licensing since about maybe 2013. It's almost impossible to know and remember everything. It used to be, it still was very complicated in 2013, but it wasn't 2023 level complicated. That's okay. So license, I was talking about bring your own license. So sorry for that confusion. So this is the bring your own license slide. Again, only external connectors and RDS CALs benefit from license mobility. RDS CALs do not have license mobility, but they have very similar rights. You can bring them using through the license verification form. Actually, it's the first item on the license verification form. External connectors have license mobility. Again, basic Windows Server CALs and rights management CALs, they must have been purchased before the 1st of October. And let me go back to the license included scenarios. And here you can notice that in the license included scenarios, Windows Server CALs are not required. That's because they're provided through SPLA and Windows Server CALs basic. They're called SALs, but for simplicity, let's call them CALs. They just don't exist in SPLA as a concept. However, if you need remote desktop access, remote desktop CALs or SALs are still required. And neither AWS nor GCP generically do not provide RDS, SALs, or CALs. Amazon provides RDS, SALs with Visual Studio. That's it. Otherwise, there's no way to buy them. Moreover, furthermore, even Microsoft Azure does not provide RDS, CALs, or SALs, and you need to buy them separately. I expect it to change. We expect it to change soon because of this 2025 cutoff date when you won't be able to bring licenses procured through third-party providers. But as of now, as it stands, you have to bring those licenses somehow. And if you look at the license included scenario, so you procure a virtual machine with Windows Server, everything else is your ongoing fees, but rights management cows or RDS cows must be brought if you want to benefit from those services. If you want, for example, to give access to your virtual machines to external users. There's another scenario which I forgot where, but this is it, where Amazon provides RDS SaaS. It provides it for Amazon workspaces. For Amazon workspaces that use Windows Server as a platform through the so-called Windows 11 experience. When Amazon workspaces run on the basis of a Windows Server platform, Amazon includes RDS subscriber access license, monthly license, in the cost of the Amazon workspace. So to reiterate, there are only two options to get RDS SaaS from Amazon, together with Visual Studio, together with Amazon workspaces. No options from Google, zero. So, Jade, in regards to RDP SaaS and cows, firstly, please go to SAMexpert.com, to our main website. There are couple of 2 or 3 articles covering this subject, and they will answer all your questions that you're asking right now in the chat. Also, there are videos on this channel, and one of the most, I think it's, they're one of the, I can't say. They're amongst the most watched videos on this channel. Questions related to client access licenses, and especially remote desktop licenses. For admin access, quickly, for admin access, for 2 connections just for admins, when you do not enable, that's important, do not enable the remote desktop role, the default connections that work through so-called remote administration role, cows or SaaS are not required. Anything above those 2 connections, when you want to give access to your users, not admins, that requires RDS, cows or SaaS. Okay, moving on. Calculating licenses for, calculating licenses for bring your own license. Windows Server licenses. This is a slide from our big Windows Server training, which I encourage you to watch. Windows Server licenses are always assigned, and remember, the new per VM rules don't apply to listed providers, neither AWS nor GCP. So we stick with the old rules of licensing Windows Server at the host level. And on dedicated hosts in Amazon, you will probably be assigning Windows Server data center licenses to those hosts, legacy Windows Server data center licenses, and if you calculate your licensable cores, these are the formulas. So I won't go into into details here. Put it on pause, take a screenshot. There's an Excel formula at the bottom of the slide. Use it. This is how many licenses you must bring to your dedicated hosts. If you like what's going on so far, I would appreciate if you click like. Thank you. You'll make my day, really. Keep us happy. Just a little note to explain who we are. Not to take a lot of your time, we are a consulting company. We consult on these questions. That's why we talk so confidently here. We do various stuff like cloud migrations, Microsoft license agreement negotiations, commercial relationship with Microsoft, audit, defense, everything related to relationship between you and Microsoft, whatever happens. Mergers and acquisitions, audits, you name it. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on this channel. You can always send us, we provide you lots of options to send us messages. We can book a call through our website with us, but please don't abuse it. because we don't provide like free consultancy on calls. It's more for just, discussing serious business problems. But you can learn from us for free on this channel and also on our website, because we have a blog with very detailed articles. And we do, I must say, we do use AI, but AI doesn't write articles for us. I use it to help me with my non-native English. That's what for. Everything you find in the articles is personal. It's written from our own experience, not collected by AI from the internet so well. And if you want to learn even more, we have a training hub, SAMexpert.academy, where also we certify for Microsoft licensing. But let's switch to SQL Server. That was a very short word about us. So SQL Server in AWS. Sorry, SQL Server on listed providers. Basic rules. The rules of Microsoft, how Microsoft sees it. You need to understand the core basics. So SQL Server has license mobility. Therefore, it has more bring your own license options than Windows Server. So in addition to using your legacy licenses without SA or with SA on dedicated hardware, you can also bring current licenses, subscription licenses. You can take, except for CSP, you can take them to virtual machines when the providers allow you. So Microsoft allows this on listed providers, these rights. So main thing that you need to take out of this slide is there's much more flexibility for bring your own license compared to Windows Server. And the same rules apply to all the other Microsoft software that has license mobility through software assurance, namely SharePoint Server, Beanstalk Server, Exchange Server. Same rules apply if you want to use them on those platforms via bring your own license, because, well, those licenses are not provided by either of the two providers that we discussed today. So now the details. The implementation on AWS, dedicated hosts, including VMware. AWS does not provide license included for SQL on dedicated hosts. You have to bring it. How can you bring it to dedicated hosts? Again, two options. Licenses with current software assurance. Simple, through license mobility through software assurance. Or if you have licenses with expired SA, but they were purchased before the 1st of October 2019, then again you have the option to bring them to dedicated hosts. However, with license without SA, what you need to remember is we have a SQL Server training session that was recorded in January, I think, this year. Watch it. Please watch it if you want to understand in details what I'm describing right now. SQL Server without software assurance should not be used in highly virtualized environments where virtual machines may travel between hosts. So you may only assign those licenses either as SQL Server Enterprise licenses at the host level to license the entire host for unlimited SQL virtualization, which is not always commercially feasible, or you may license it with licenses, those legacy licenses without software assurance, at the virtual machine level, when virtual machines do not move across hosts. So as far as I remember, AWS dedicated hosts are not clustered, but VMware on Amazon, just by design, that's one of the VMware features, has DRS and VM mobility, vMotion. That requires software assurance. So if you need the virtual machines to travel between hosts, forget about your legacy licenses. You need SQL Server licenses with software assurance on dedicated hosts. EC2 dedicated instances. So with 99% certainty, if you did not procure an image with SQL licenses included, then you may bring your own SQL Server licenses. You have to deploy it from your own SQL Server media. It's important. In that case, you may also bring your own licenses through the rights provided by license mobility through software assurance. And EC2 instances, same rules apply on shared hardware, exactly the same as what I just described. SQL Server in Google Cloud. Again, GCP does not provide licenses, any Microsoft licenses on sole tenant hosts. So same rules applies to AWS. To bring your own license scenarios, I won't repeat them again. On shared tenancy, you may bring your own licenses through license mobility through software assurance. And you do have, still, you have that third option via another SPLA provider. Still possible. There's still a cutoff date of the 30th of September 2025. So for example, if you work with an outsourcing partner, an IT outsourcer or a service provider, and some of your workloads that are run in AWS, they manage for you, and we support such providers. For example, one of our clients has half of their workloads in their own data centers. Half of their end client workloads, they run on AWS. In that case, when they manage those virtual machines, they can also provide SPLA licenses for those virtual machines until 30th of September 25. That's another option. And it provides more cost flexibility compared to bringing your own licenses. So as Google and AWS provide an option to license SQL on managed instances, you probably don't want this option. But talking about dedicated hardware, that is your third option to bring SQL licenses to dedicated hardware without procuring licenses of your own, because neither AWS nor GCP provide license-included options for dedicated hardware. Moving on. Calculating core licenses. So when you license physical server with SQL Server Enterprise, these are the formulas. Again, let's not go deep into details. There's a minimum of 4 cores per physical CPU, and there's an Excel formula, if you know how to use Microsoft Excel, at the bottom of the slide, that you can use to calculate how many licenses you need for hardware hosts. This is the formula for the hardware hosts. When you bring in your own licenses to virtual machines, in that case, there's a minimum of 4 licenses per virtual machine. This slide, to be absolutely precise, talks about hardware threads. In the majority of cases, for example, on AWS, except for T2 instances, and that is still, I need to research that, the mapping is 1 hardware thread to 1 virtual CPU. And in addition to that, if you go to the AWS Microsoft licensing pages, they provide you exact quantity of SQL Server licenses you need for each available AWS instance size. It's as simple as that. They do give you all the answers. This is how many licenses you require. But what you will notice when you go through that list, if you're a geek like me, you will see that each of that quantities corresponds to the number of cores, virtual CPUs or virtual cores, of that virtual machine size. The only thing you need to remember is if that virtual machine has less than 4, say 2 virtual CPUs, then still the minimum you need to assign is 4 SQL Server core licenses. If you want to learn more about core calculations, please watch the SQL Server licensing training in the same series on this channel. And still, if you haven't yet clicked like, please do. I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks. So other software on AWS and GCP. In general, the rules are the same as for SQL Server, because but what's important is that not all Microsoft software has license mobility. For example, Office doesn't have license mobility. Visual Studio doesn't have license mobility. As we already mentioned, Windows Server doesn't have license mobility. So the options that you have on dedicated hardware, AWS on dedicated hardware provides Office Professional Plus via monthly fees for AWS Workspaces. AWS Workspaces as far as I remember, by design, are dedicated. That's just how they configured. So Office Professional Plus, I may be mistaken, but that's what I know. Office Professional Plus is available for AWS workspaces as a license included option. On virtual machines on shared multi-tenant hardware, and I would assume also that for EC2 dedicated instances, you can also procure Visual Studio licenses. And Visual Studio licenses are only available as license included option because, as I just said, Visual Studio does not have licensability through through software assurance. That right is not granted to that particular software. So GCP, as you may notice from this slide, it's not even mentioned. They don't provide any other Microsoft licenses in addition to Windows Server and SQL Server. That's it. That's where that stops. You know, Amazon provides a couple of additional options here. Bring your own license is exactly the same as for SQL Server on dedicated hardware and on shared hardware. Again, I will remind you that you need to check whether the product is eligible. But then again, because you have to fill in the license verification form, you can't just assign licenses without going through the license verification process. You will see in the form which products are eligible. And by the way, Microsoft license verification form is the best source of the information about which products are eligible for license mobility. There's no better source. It's like everything in one place. It's better than crawling through product terms. It's better than looking up frequently asked questions on the provider's websites. Download Microsoft license verification form. That's your entire list of all the products, CALs, external connectors, and core licenses, server licenses, instant licenses, user licenses that have license mobility. A few words about Visual Studio and AWS. So AWS provides license, sorry, it must be Visual Studio, yeah. Provides professional enterprise editions. It must be deployed using specifically pre-configured Amazon managed images, Amazon machine images, AMIs, Amazon machine images, not Amazon managed instances. Charges for that software are per user per month, because those are SPLA licenses and they are licensed per user per month. And Amazon provides RDS access licenses together with Visual Studio licenses equal to the number of user licenses for Visual Studio. Basically, each user is provided with Visual Studio and an RDS SAL, because without an RDS SAL, they cannot access Visual Studio. It's a requirement. They go together. So Visual Studio has no license mobility, therefore it has limited bring your own license rights. So if you have old, again, legacy licenses procured before 1st of October 2019, you can take them to dedicated hardware. That is the only bring your own license option for Visual Studio. MSDN software, so it's one of the frequently asked questions. Can we take our MSDN software? You know, we bought Visual Studio in 2018 with MSDN, so we still want to use our MSDN software. Yes, you can take it, as long as that subscription was open before the 1st of October 2019. And you have the legacy license for Visual Studio. Even when MSDN subscription has expired, Amazon, and they have a very good Microsoft licensing team, they say that you may take that MSDN software from that old subscription and deploy it on dedicated hosts. Otherwise, no. Otherwise, there's no. I mean, if it's a newer subscription, or if it's if it's a newer subscription, that cannot be BYOL, cannot be brought. Microsoft Office and AWS. AWS provides license included Office for workspaces. Even if you deploy Windows 10, Windows 11 based workspaces, Amazon workspaces, there is an option when you configure an image for workspaces to say, I want Office, and then Amazon installs Office inside your image. Because for Windows 10 and 11, you must bring your own images. You must upload them. Amazon will install Office for you. Charges again for that is per user per month. That is not Office 365, that is Office Professional Plus. Office Standard for some reason also is not available. There are version limitations based on the operating system. For example, for Windows 11 and Workspace Windows 11 experience on the base of the recent Windows Server, you can only get Office 2019, you can't get Office 2016. But those are details. Those are technical details, more or less. And so, yeah, that's what it does. They provide you with not Office 365 binaries, but Office 2016 or 2019 binaries, depending on the virtual machine version. And if you're wondering whether you can connect them to Office 365 service, yes, you can. It's still supported. It will soon become unsupported, but it's still supported by Microsoft. So that's it. Charges up per user per month. These products, the old legacy Office, don't have license mobility through software assurance. Again, you're limited to old licenses procured before the 1st of October 2019 on dedicated hardware, if you want to bring them to Amazon. That you can't take them to Workspaces, you can't take them to... Actually, can you take them to Workspaces? That's a good question. So Amazon does not have an answer to that question as far as I'm concerned. I searched for it. In theory, if Workspaces run on dedicated hardware, you should be able to bring your own legacy licenses to that dedicated hardware. There's nothing in the Microsoft licensing terms that prohibits you that, but I'm not sure whether whether AWS would technically allow you to deploy Office in Workspaces. So that is something we need to check. That concludes our short training session for today. So to improve it, because I want to rerun it in maybe a couple of months with updated and improved information, we desperately need your feedback. So please leave a comment with your questions. Please email us. Tell us if you found a mistake. Click the like button. Vote and suggest future training topics. And by the way, talking about the vote, we run regular votes here. When I say regular, they used to be bi-weekly. Now we run them once per month, maybe once in 2 months. And we ask our audience, we ask you, what next training subjects you want to see. This is an example. So another poll is also published on our LinkedIn page, on the white background. So we combine then those numbers by numbers, not by percentages, by numbers, absolute values, and then we schedule sometimes one next session, sometimes 2 or 3 next sessions, depending on how people vote. And right now, the latest poll is about the next session in June, and people voted overwhelmingly for Microsoft Power Platform. So watch these 2 spaces. When you see a poll from us, you can vote for the next topic. Furthermore, if you don't see it, if you can't find it, if you miss the poll, you can always message us through all available channels and say, guys, I really, really want you to publish a training on, say, Dynamics 365. We will consider that, and we'll probably put it to popular vote again. But at least we will know from you that you want to learn that subject. This is what we do here. We're a consulting company, but we like sharing, and we provide these training sessions right now on a monthly basis here on this YouTube channel and on SAMexpert Academy, free of charge. And you can also, certification is not free of charge. There's a free hidden option, but otherwise it's not free of charge, but it's only £99. If you want a certificate from us, it's a tough exam. I warn you, 80 questions. You're given 3 hours to pass it. But those who passed it, we have a list of those people. And when we look for future candidates, this is where we look. Big secret, isn't it? Anyway, so thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you for your questions. Jade and Nora, thank you for your messages in the chat. And I'll see you in the end of June on the training dedicated to Power Platform. I hope I'll bring a company that actually implements Power Platform so they can comment on the practical side of things, not just licensing. Have a good day, and Good luck with your